What's up, everyone? This is the first video of 2025. Um, this video, I'll be breaking down the first card of the year. We got in the main event, we got Amanda Ribas versus Mackenzie Dern, 2, a rematch. I'll get right into it. All right, first fight, we got Narulo Ali versus Shmooze. I think Ali, he's coming off that win, that first win against Rafael Alves, who's not in the UFC anymore. In that fight, he basically just wrestled Alves for 3 rounds. Um, didn't really strike much. Then we got Ash Moose. He beat Sam Paris in his first fight, lost to Chris Duncan, and then he beat Trevor Peek. Um, and honestly, I don't even think that I thought that Ash Moose should have not should have. Um, I thought Ash Moose should have beat Chris Duncan, but he lost the fight. So, um, we got 9-0 versus 8-1. Believe 4-inch reach advantage, 1-inch height advantage. Um, Aleve in this matchup will probably be the one trying to wrestle, take Ash Moose to the ground. Meanwhile, Ash Moose will be the one wanting to keep it on the feet and strike with Aleve. Aleve is really just wants to wrestle all of his fights. He just wants to wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. So, that's how I see this fight playing out. If Aleve, this would probably be Aleve like Aleve's last fight, where he's just trying to wrestle all 3 rounds, control his opponent on the ground, and won a 3-round decision. I don't really see any fighter getting a finish here. So yeah, I'll take a leave by decision. Next fight, we got Victoria Dudakova versus Fatima Klein, and Dudakova's coming off that lost her undefeated streak to Sam Hughes, and then Klein just lost to Jasmine Jasudavicius, which is not a bad loss because Jasudavicius has been doing really good past couple years. So, but I do not get why the line's this huge for Klein at all. Dudakova will be at a 1-inch height disadvantage and a half-inch reach disadvantage, but I don't understand why Klein is such a high favorite in this matchup. Um, this is Dudakova's third fight in the UFC, and Klein's only actually this would be Dudakova's fourth fight in the UFC, and only Klein's second. So I don't understand why Klein is such a big favorite. I wonder hold on, this fight, what is it at? So this fight's at strawweight, and Klein's last fight was at flyweight. So Klein's moving down from flyweight to strawweight. Um, Dudakova can grapple pretty decently. I mean, she can grapple and wrestle when she needs to. Klein, on the other hand, someone that wants to strike. She likes to strike and get her hands going. So this is a hard fight to pick. I mean, even though you would think that it'd be easy to pick Klein from how big of a favorite she is, but I don't understand why she's this big of a favorite. I mean, I'm gonna pick Klein, but I mean, I don't really know how this fight's gonna play out at all, considering Klein's moving down in weight and Dudakova did kind of get tired and gas out her last fight, and it was still a split decision somehow. She looked decent against Jinh Fry. And the fight with Estela Nunez, she did look good, but then I mean, she dislocated her elbow, so it kind of was like we didn't get to see everything out of Dudakova in that fight, but we did see a lot from Dudakova in her fight against Sam Hughes, which she lost. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dudakova learned from her mistakes in her last fight with Hughes and wins this fight. I mean, I'm gonna pick Klein, but I would not be surprised if Dudakova won because the lines. This is a crazy line, absolutely absurd. Next fight we got Bruno Lopez versus Magomed Gadzhierzulov, and I'm kind of high on Gadzhi Azulov. I watched his contender fight against Jose Medina, and Jose Medina was not the most conditioned and skilled fighter, but Medina has had a lot of heart. So Gadzhi Azulov had to really was really tested with his cardio and his willpower to go all three rounds with someone as tough as Medina. And then he beat Branson Ribeiro by decision. Kind of a weird fight, majority decision, but he did end up winning. Gaji Zulov is a good striker, can grapple decently. But thing with Gaji Zulov is his gas tank is that he tends to slow down a lot. Has and his out once his output's really high, his gas tank depletes pretty fast. Bruno Lopez coming off a win from the Contender Series against Macau's Saji, and Mikhail, yeah, Saj Zinani. This will be his first fight in the UFC. Gazi Zulov 1 inch reach advantage. Same height for these two fighters. Lopez 13-1 and Gazi Zulov's still undefeated 9-0. I'm gonna pick Gazi Zulov in this fight. I think Gazi Zulov should be able to keep Lopez at range for 3 rounds and really just do what Gazi Zulov has done his past two fights. He's won in the UFC. I mean, he's fought the same. The contender fight that I watched and the fight against Branson Ribeiro, he fought the same exact way. Just try to stay at range and pick his opponent apart for 3 rounds. So that's how I see this fight going against Bruno Lopez. Bruno Lopez um, does have a good chance to win this fight, considering if he uses his grappling and tries to slow Gaji Zulov down. If Lopez can mix in his takedowns, actually take Gazizulov down and wear him down, he might be able to win this fight because Gazizulov, like I said, does not have the best cardio. So, um, let's say Gazizulov wins maybe the first round, starts off hot like he normally does, but tends to slow down, and Lopez is able to work his takedowns and really mix in his wrestling. He might be able to win, but I'm gonna still pick Gazizulov by 3 round decision. Next fight, we got Nicole Cagliari versus Ernesta Caricate. And Cagliari is coming off a win where she was an underdog on the Contender Series against Corinne Lanfambros. She had the quick armbar win, and then Caricate's coming off a loss to Danny Barbosa, who took her undefeated streak. Um, Cagliari is going to be at a big reach disadvantage in this fight. I mean, and height disadvantage, but she'll be at a 6 inch height disadvantage and a 9 inch reach disadvantage. But she is the older fighter and has more experience. I mean, this will be Cagliari's first fight in the UFC, but she has more fights on her record, so compared to Carrot Cake. And Carrot Cake has some weird wins. I mean, as you see, 3 split decisions, and the one that I actually watched against Carly Judas on the Contender Series, I don't think she won that fight, but it is what it is. Everyone's picking the underdog here, Cagliari, so which kind of surprises me, but I'm also not surprised. I mean, it surprises me just because, like I said, the height and reach advantage for Carrot Cake is so massive, but um. I think that I think that Ernesto will have the slight advantage on the feet, but Cagliari is definitely going to have the advantage on the ground grappling. And I think that if Ernesto tends to slow down, like I saw in her first UFC fight and her contender fight, I think that Cagliari will maybe be able to get the win here and maybe even find a finish by submission. So this is another tough fight. I mean, we got yeah, this is a tough fight to pick, but I'm gonna pick Cagliari here by submission or submissions round 2 or 3 or decision. So um this should be a good fight though, regardless, because they're gonna walk each other down and someone's gonna try to find a finish. So I'm gonna pick Cagliari there by rounds 2 or 3 submission or decision. Next fight, we got Preston Parsons, who's coming off a loss to, I think, Oban Elliott. Yep. And then we got Andreas Gustafsson, who's coming off a win from the Contender Series. Gustafsson, 1 inch height advantage, 3 inch reach advantage. Everyone's picking Gustafsson here, and rightly so. I mean, Parsons might have the advantage grappling in this fight, but I think that what I've seen from Gustafsson, striking advantage, strength advantage, um, and maybe the cardio advantage because when Preston Parsons fights, um, he puts his name's pressure, but he puts so much pressure where it can be detrimental to himself. He wears himself out. He just walks all these fighters down, eats their shots, and then tries to take them down or return with his own strikes, which hasn't worked out too well for him. Lost to Oban Elliott. He did beat Matthew Semmelsberger, lost a split to Trevin Giles. I mean, he has some good UFC experience. He's fought some decent fighters, Daniel Rodriguez. So this would be his sixth fight in the UFC and Gustafsson's first. So I think Gustafsson's just hungrier, more ready for this moment, and I think Gustafsson should be able to find a win by rounds 2, 3 knockout or decision. So I'm picking Gustafsson. Next fight, this is a really good matchup. We got Thiago Moises versus Trey Ogden. And Ogden just beat Loic Rajabov. Before that, he beat Kurt Hollabaugh. He was beating the crap out of Nicholas Mota, but whichever ref was reffing that fight stopped it early. And then he lost to Ignacio Bahamondes, which is not a bad loss at all. Not a bad loss because we just seen how Bahamondes performed against Manuel Torres at the Sphere. So losing to Bahamondes, not a bad loss. A split to Levitt. I mean, no one really wants to lose to Jordan Levitt, but that was also what's his Ogden's first fight in the UFC, and it was a split. So and beating Daniel Zellhuber, I mean, I know that Daniel Zellhuber just lost a close fight to Ribas at the Sphere also, but taking taking Zellhuber's undefeated streak is that's a good thing to do. So this is a close fight. Um, 18-6 versus 18-8. Ogden, the older fighter with here, which actually surprised me because Thiago Moises has been in the UFC for a minute. He's got 13 UFC fights, which surprised me because I would have thought that Moises would have been older. I mean, Moises has fought, I think he fought Drew Dober, right? Did he? I know for sure he fought Islam, Bobby Green, Beneil Dariush, Tamir Ismagulov, Kurt Hollabaugh when he was in the UFC a few years. I mean, he's still in the he's in the UFC again, but when he was previously in the UFC, Bobby Green, Alexander Hernandez, Joel Alvarez, who we just saw have a dominant win over Jakar Close, Christos Giagos, BSD. I mean, Moises has been in the UFC for a minute, fighting some decently high level competition. I mean, Bobby Green was in the top 15 at once. I think Demiris Magulov, if he wasn't ranked, he was right outside the top 15. Well, I mean, these are not bad losses. It's Magulov, Dariush, Islam, Alvarez, BSD. Considering how we've seen BSD's last few fights play out, you might want to say that's a bad loss. But I mean, BSD at that time was on a tear. So this is a tough fight to pick right here. We got Moises 2 inch height disadvantage and a 1.5 reach disadvantage. So, and Ogden usually comes into his fights the bigger fighter compared to his opponents. Trey Ogden is a fighter that will put pressure on his opponents, try to wear them down with his grappling. But it's kind of the same thing with Thiago Moises. I mean, Thiago Moises is definitely a grappler who's gotten more accustomed to striking as of recent. But where Moises gets most of his work done is on the ground, submitting people. So This is a grappler versus grappler matchup, and it's kind of hard to pick. I'm gonna pick Ogden here, honestly. Obviously, Moises, the more UFC experienced fighter, might have the better striking, but I think that Ogden will carry the power advantage, and it's really hard to pick who's gonna have like the actual the striking advantage. I might give it to Moises, but the power is gonna go to Ogden because he usually comes in as a big fighter, so. Grappling advantage is really hard to pick. I mean, as we know, Moises has really good jiu-jitsu, but the way that Ogden gets his most of his work done is on the ground too, like out grappling people. So really good grappler. We got grappler versus grappler here, and who knows how this fight will play out if usually grappler versus grappler ends up in a striking match. So we're gonna see how this one plays out. I'm gonna pick Ogden, but it's a hard fight to pick right here. I'll pick the Ogden by he might be able to get a finish if he's able to wear Moises down. He might be able to get a finish here, but I'm gonna pick Ogden by decision. Next fight, we got Marco Tulio versus Ihor Potieria, and Potieria coming off that nasty submission loss to he lost to Cesar Almeida, but I'm thinking of when he got pieced up and submitted by Michel Pereira. Um, Tulio's coming off, I think, a contender win. Yep, coming off a win off the contender series. Good fighter. He was on the contender series actually before that too. He beat Yusri Beljarui, kickboxer that Alex Pereira previously fought and trains with now. Tulio will be at a 2 inch height disadvantage and a half-inch reach disadvantage. I'm picking Tulio here easily. Like Potiera is probably respectfully one of the worst UFC fighters on the roster, respectfully. I mean he will beat the crap out of any average person, any man walking down the street, but as far as the light heavyweights go in the UFC, he's one of the worst. So yeah. Chin is not good for a Polti area. The striking is not that good. The grappling is not that good. The cardio is not that good. So I'm gonna pick Tulio here, round one, round two. Not I should be able to get the finish early and however he wants by submission or knockout. So I'm gonna pick Tulio here, round one, TKO or submission. Next fight we got Felipe Bunes versus Jose Johnson, and Johnson coming off a loss to Asu Almobayev, who's a really good prospect for 125s. And then Boons, who did he just lose to? Okay, yeah, Joshua Van, he got knocked out. And this will be his second fight in the UFC, while Johnson's had a few, maybe his one. Yeah, this will be his fourth. So, and Johnson's really, really, really big for flyweights, man. He's huge. He's so tall, 6 foot. I mean, yeah, like as you see there, he's gonna have a like a 5 inch height advantage. Is that right? Yeah, I think 5 inch height advantage and only a half-inch reach advantage. So everyone picking Johnson here. Damn, I didn't know Felipe was that old. He's 35. Um, Felipe should have the grappling advantage. Um, Johnson will have the striking advantage. What this fight really comes down to is if Felipe can utilize his grappling and wear on Johnson because Johnson has slowed down in the past because I feel like he's way too big for flyweight. Um, he has slowed down, and yeah, if there's any hole in Johnson's game, it's his cardio, and that's really because he's just humongous for flyweights. So if this fight's able to stay on the feet for 3 rounds and Johnson's be able to keep his distance and not let Felipe use his grappling at all, Johnson should be able to outstrike Felipe for 3 rounds. Maybe Felipe can get in there and land a big shot and hurt Johnson, but who really knows if that can happen. I'm gonna pick Johnson here, but kind of too wide of line that I thought. So Yeah, I'm gonna pick Johnson here ever so slightly, maybe about like 3 round decision. I don't really see. It's gonna be hard to. I mean, both fighters can get a finish in this fight, but I just see Johnson maybe being the cleaner striker for 3 rounds. So I'm gonna pick Johnson here ever so slightly for a decision, 3 round decision. Next fight, we got Puna Soriano versus Uros Medic. This would be a really good fight. It's gonna be a war. Right off the bat, um, damn, I didn't know Puna had the reach advantage in this one. So Medic will have a 2 inch height advantage, and but he'll be at a 1.5 inch reach disadvantage. As far as UFC experience goes, I mean, they're kind of almost even. I feel like Puna's maybe been fighting in the UFC a little bit longer, 2019 to 2021. Yeah, he's been fighting in the UFC a little bit longer, but they've both fought some high level fighters. I mean, Brandon Allen, Kopilov's pretty decent. Um, Medic fought Mektabek, pretty high level. I know Mektabek just lost, but still, Mektabek is a really good fighter. Jalen Turner, good fighter. So both of them pretty decently seasoned as far as experience goes. This is going to be a striking battle. I don't see. I mean, if anyone's going to use their wrestling and grappling, it's going to be Puna, but Puna does not wrestle that much, and Uros loves to strike. So I see this being a striking battle, and I think that Uros is just too sharp for Puna. Puna, he has a decent chin, but he does get tagged a lot. So I'm gonna pick Medic in this fight by rounds like 2 or 3 knockout. I think he should be able to get a finish once Puna slows down, and he'll just keep his strikes going, keep the pressure on like Medic does. And Medic is really clean as a striker, so I think that he should be able to find a finish and find a knockout in the later rounds. This will be a really, really good fight. We got Austin Bashi versus C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez, and Bashi's coming off his win off the Contender Series, which was a good fight. Um, Bashi's really young, man, 23, 1 year older than me. And C-Rod, I mean, he's young too, but this fight would be at featherweight. C-Rod had his first fight back up at featherweight against Julian Rosa, which he lost. Actually, his second fight, because I believe also that fight against Isaac Dolgarian was at featherweight too, wasn't it? Yeah, that was at featherweight. So his second fight back up at featherweight, because I know he fought JSP at featherweight. So C-Rod's third fight back up at featherweight. And that was a close fight with Isaac Dolgarian that I thought that, I mean, I see how the judges gave it to Rodriguez, but I still think that Dolgarian should have won that fight. Then he got submitted by Julian Rosa. And I feel like one of the reasons why Rodriguez was doing so good previously is because he was fighting at 135 and he had advantage on most of the guys, a strength advantage on most of the fighters that he fought. And now up at 145, he doesn't have that anymore. So, I mean, it's not like C-Rod is a bad fighter. He has really clean striking and he can wrestle and grapple. So he's a good fighter, but I feel like the reason why he was so successful, maybe just like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, was because he was fighting at 135 and had a huge strength advantage over most of his opponents. I think in this fight, Rodriguez will have the striking advantage, but Bashi will definitely have the grappling advantage. Bashi is a really, really good grappler, underrated grappler. I mean, I think his finish rate's got to be almost 100% finish. Okay, not 100%. I guess so he shows that he can go the distance as well, which is good. Because C-Rod, like I said, C-Rod, he's had his troubles on the scale and he's had troubles slowing down in fights, most definitely. Um, a lot of fights he slows down in, but maybe he won't this fight because he's up at 145. So I don't want to say it's a tough fight to pick because I'm gonna definitely pick Bashi here, but like C-Rod already took two undefeated records. Raul Rosas and Cameron Simon. Who knows? He can maybe take Bashi's too. And it's not like Bashi's a good prospect, but C-Rod, he just beats these people some way. But those were also at 135. So I mean, this is a tricky fight. I'm gonna pick Bashi. I don't know if Bashi will be able to find a finish. Maybe this is a fight that Bashi shows that he can go up against some seasoned fighters and go all the way to a decision. And this is a fight that shows all of it, like shows his full skill set in. I'm gonna pick Bashi here. I think Bashi, I don't see him finding a knockout, but maybe he can find a submission if Rodriguez slows down in rounds like two or three. So I'm gonna pick Bashi submission in rounds two or three or decision. Should be a really good fight and maybe even fight of the night, honestly. Or maybe this could be fight of the night. We got Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov, striker versus striker in this matchup. This would be a really good fight. Kopylov, 2-inch height advantage, half-inch reach disadvantage. Chris Curtis definitely the more experienced fighter here. However, he's the older fighter. Chris Curtis has shown that he can tend to slow down in some of his fights. And he's coming off a loss to Brandon Allen, I believe. Yep, the split to Brandon Allen, split win to Barrialt. That weird fight with Hamavov, lost to Gastelum, knocked out Buckley. And then we saw Kopylov lose, he got choked out by Anthony Fluffy. And he had that close fight with Cesar Almeida where usually you don't ever see Kopylov wrestle, right? Well, he was wrestling against Cesar Almeida because although Almeida is not a extremely experienced MMA fighter, he's a definitely a deeply seasoned kickboxer. And Kopylov did not want to stand with Almeida, and that's why he utilized his grappling against Almeida. So, Kopylov did win that fight, but if he didn't use his grappling, he was going to be in trouble. So, I'm going to pick Kopylov here. I don't see any fighter really getting a finish here. This should be just be a technical 3-round striking battle. I see Kopylov just being a little bit quicker, a little bit more conditioned, and a little bit more durable than Chris Curtis because Chris Curtis has been in a lot of tough fights. So I see Kopylov just utilizing his striking like he always does. Like well, I won't say always, but like he did against Josh Fram and Claudio Ribeiro and Puna Soriano. So I see Kopylov winning a 3-round decision, maybe a knockout, but I think that both fighters are durable enough that that either fighter won't be able to find a finish. So I'll take Kopylov here by decision. Next fight, we got Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Cesar Almeida, who I was just talking about. Cesar Almeida's coming off a win to Ihor Potieria. Don't know how he didn't knock out Ihor Potieria, but he beat him, which is all that matters. So this will be Potieria's fourth fight in the UFC. I mean, not Potieria, excuse me. Almeida's fourth fight in the UFC. So he's still gaining experience um, as he fights. He's kind of a green MMA fighter still, if you ask me, compared to Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He'll definitely have the MMA ex experience advantage over Almeida. And Al Hassan has fought some decent fighters, Pfeiffer, Buckley, Chaos Williams, decent fighters. And most of his wins are not in the UFC anymore. Omasi not in the UFC. I don't think the Kiriko's in the UFC anymore. Ribeiro is definitely not in the UFC anymore. So a lot of the wins for Al Hassan is not are not in the UFC anymore. Almeida, 3-inch height advantage, 1-inch reach advantage. Actually, the younger fighter too, which surprises me. So Almeida will definitely have the striking advantage in this fight. Al Hassan I think that Almeida actually should have the cardio advantage too. He should have the cardio advantage, the strength advantage, the striking advantage. I feel like almost to I have to give this the grappling advantage almost to everyone else that Almeida fights because Almeida's grappling, it's it's kind of bad. It's bad. It's bad, man. It's bad. I mean, it's good enough to not get submitted and finished, but it's not good enough to defend takedowns the whole fight and keep it the way that he wants to fight. Obviously, Almeida wants to keep his fight standing for the whole fight and doesn't want to give up takedowns, but he tends to give up takedowns, especially against Kopylov. I don't really, I think Bud maybe got him down a few times, but if Al Hassan's able to get him down, maybe even just hold him on the fence, he can make it a close fight. But I think that Almeida's striking is just too good. Um, Abdul Razak Al Hassan has slowed down, and he's been knocked out a few times too. Let me see who knocked him out. He got knocked out against Chaos Williams, finished against Joe Pyfer. So he's been finished a few times. I think that Almeida's just more durable, and his striking is way better than Al Hassan. So I'll pick Almeida over by maybe like a round two knockout, round three knockout. Definitely picking Almeida here. So, but this should be a good fight regardless of who wins. All these three fights right here, Almeida, Kopylov, Bashi, Medic. Great. That four fight span right there, really good. I mean, this is a good card. Thiago Moises, Ogden, Tulio Potieria went from this sixth fight all the way up to the 12th fight are going to be really, I mean, even the 13th fight, the next fight we got up, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Carlson Harris. Going to be a striking battle. It's going to be a war. Um, Same height, 3-inch reach advantage for Harris. Harris coming off a loss to who beat him? Let's say it wasn't Jeremiah Wells because he beat Jeremiah Wells. Yeah, he submitted Jeremiah Wells and got knocked out by Chaos Williams. Ponzinibbio's been on a tough. He's had a tough past like 2 or 3 years. Really, really. Yeah, after he got knocked out by the Leech, he's had a tough going. Went over Miguel Baeza and beat Alex Morono. That's it. I mean, close fight with Jeff Neal, close fight with Michel Pereira and Muslim Salikov, but they all didn't go his way. So he's had a tough going, and I think he might have another tough going here. But this is a close fight. I mean, Carson Harris did just get put out kind of bad his last fight, um, against a power puncher in Chaos Williams. I think that Carlson Harris should have the advantages in most departments here. However, getting put out like that, it's hard to come back from, especially at Harris's age. He's 37. And he got put out bad against Shavkat too. So it's like you can only get put out like that so many times. And Ponzinibbio is a really experienced fighter, and this is a hard fight to pick. I mean, it's pretty much even, as you see the line, but I mean, without this win right here, Ponzinibbio's on like a 5 fight losing streak. Let me see. Yeah, 5 fight losing without the Alex Morono win and without the Miguel Baeza win. He's on a bad losing on a Tony Ferguson losing streak. So, mm, I'm gonna pick. Mm, this is tough, man. Ponzinibbio's last fight 5 months ago, 7 months ago for Harris. Mm, Pretty much split picks. I'm gonna pick Ponzinibbio here, just off the experience. I think that maybe Ponzinibbio can use his grappling, hold Carlson on the fence, maybe wear on his gas tank for 3 rounds. So I'm gonna pick Ponzinibbio here, ever so slightly by a 3-round decision. But this is a tough fight to pick right here. Tough fight to pick, but will be a good fight. So next up, we got the rematch: Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Ribas. Ribas coming off a loss to Rose Namajunas in that main event, I believe. That was a main event fight, right? And Mackenzie Dern's coming off that good. It was a tough win over Lupe Godinez. Um, in this fight, Ribas will have 3 inch height or 3 inch reach advantage and 1 inch height advantage, or no, 1 inch height disadvantage. Excuse me. I think Dern will have the experience edge, which he's got 14 UFC fights compared to Ribas's 11. Dern will have the grappling edge, as she will in most of her fights. And Ribas will have the striking advantage. But I feel like over the past maybe like 2 or 3 fights for Mackenzie Dern, even though she lost those 2 fights right there, she's gotten a lot better at her striking. She can really she uses her striking to set up her grappling now. So, ooh, it's still a tough fight to pick. It's hard to pick against the fighter who already won in the first fight, but okay. And Ribas usually fights at flyweight too. I know Ribas will go up and down, and this fight is at strawweight. So maybe the weight cut will have an effect on Ribas and slow her down a little bit. I'm gonna pick Dern here. Dern should be able to 5 round fight, control her. She should be able to control Ribas on the ground. Ribas tends to slow down and get a little sloppy in her striking as her fights goes on. So I'm gonna pick Dern here ever so slightly. This is a tough fight to pick. I mean, 14-5 versus 13-5, pretty much the same height and reach. Two Brazilians who have, I mean, I think Dern's better grappling, but it's not like Ribas is a bad grappler and decent striking for both. So this should really be like a 50-50 fight. I think Mackenzie Dern's gonna win. I'll take her by maybe like a late submission, rounds 2, 3, 4, or decision. Either way, I think Mackenzie Dern's gonna win. So those are all my picks for the first card of the year. Yeah, that's it. Hope everyone enjoys watching this card, has fun. I'll see you guys for the next breakdown.